Now, Mr. President, on another matter, we've heard a lot about the Supreme Court's imminent decision on Obamacare's latest problems. No one can say for sure how the court will rule, but one thing we do know is this: Obamacare is a mess. It's a law filled with broken promises, one that's been plagued by failure, and one that's caused costs to skyrocket for millions. After the supporters of this law promised the costs would actually fall. I speak to you now in the wake of a bombshell admission from the administration that many insurers are now requesting to raise premiums by double digits all across the country. Numbers for Kentucky, for instance, just came out yesterday. Most of the insurers on the Commonwealth's Obamacare exchange are looking to raise premiums. Some of the proposed increases are as high as 25%, and some Kentuckians may now face double-digit premium increases for the second or even the third year in a row. This is more bad Obamacare news for the people I represent. And in some states, the proposed increases are even more alarming, if you could believe it. Kentuckians can look next door for proof of that, where some Hoosiers could be hit with a 46% jump in their premiums. Or they could look south to Tennessee. They'll see the premium hikes of 36% have been proposed. These are huge numbers. They affect real people. We've seen the truth of that statement in the stories we hear from constituents about how Obamacare's massive cost burdens affect all of them. Take the Kentucky small business owner who wrote to say that his plan is now being canceled. Canceled thanks to Obamacare. Here's what he had to say: "My monthly premium will increase from $610 to approximately $1,200, from $600 to $1,200, he said, and this is with very high deductibles." Or take the constituent of mine from Floyd County who recently wrote to say that she can no longer afford her silver Obamacare plan after the monthly premium spiked by more than 175%. 175%. "I was forced to take the bronze plan," she said, "which isn't worth the paper or ink to print it on." These are the kinds of stories that have become all too familiar in the age of Obamacare. They're compounded by a continual drip of bad news about this law. Like the recent report that showed how Obamacare's multi-billion-dollar attack on hospitals in Kentucky is expected to result in a net loss of $1 billion over the next few years. A net loss of $1 billion to Kentucky hospitals. Mr. President, this is after Obamacare already compelled taxpayers to shell out billions for websites that never worked, along with some pretty sad and desperate but expensive taxpayer financing marketing campaigns that often just directed users to some technological nightmare, not affordable health care. Take Oregon, for instance. Taxpayers spent over $300 million on that state's exchange, only to have it taken over by the federal government, and then, along with the Obamacare exchange in Massachusetts, placed under federal criminal investigation. Or look at Hawaii, which received more than $205 million to establish its exchange. We learned just last month that the Hawaii exchange is planning to shut down operations by September the 30th, since lawmakers couldn't decide on a path forward to pay for it. And then there's Vermont. The New York Times this morning reported on the spectacular crash of Vermont's even more ambitious version of Obamacare. Many on the left thought Vermont's experiment would light the way forward on health care. In the event, it turned out to be a remarkable failure, and as one Vermonter put it, an unending money pit. The state's top health official now says that Obamacare's exchanges just weren't set up for success. That's in Vermont. Obamacare is hitting small and mid-priced businesses too. These are the engines of job growth in our economy. But too many of them are now facing premium hikes of nearly 20% because of Obamacare. One 54-person company in Connecticut is facing up to $100,000 in new costs. Its owner says that Obamacare punishes companies for hiring new, younger workers. And indeed, the uncertainty is causing her company to hire temporary workers rather than create permanent jobs. So while it's possible that Obamacare will survive its latest crisis, that's not going to change the grim reality of this law. It won't change the broken promises, it won't change the repeated failures, and it won't change the fact that Obamacare has led to skyrocketing costs for taxpayers, for the small businesses who drive the American dream, and most importantly, for middle-class Americans who work hard every single day and play by the rules. It's about time the president and his party worked constructively with us to start over on real health reform that can lower costs and increase choice instead of hurting the middle class the way Obamacare does. That's what the American people deserve.